My son is in the emergency room, I texted. We're busy with Suzie, my mom replied. What I did next changed everything. You ever have one of those moments where life just rips the blindfold off, and suddenly you see everything for what it really is? That happened to me the night I ended up in the emergency room. And what I learned from that night, what it revealed about my family, changed everything. It was a Wednesday, just a normal weekday. Micah, my 9-year-old son, had stayed late at his after-school program because I had back-to-back meetings at work. I'm a financial analyst for a firm that loves pretending their deadlines are the end of the world. I'm used to stress. But that day, something was different. Around 6:15 p.m., I started feeling this strange pressure in my side. I brushed it off at first. I'd skipped lunch and figured I just needed some food and rest. But by 7, I could barely stand. The pain had gone from annoying to something terrifying. Sharp. Deep. Like something was tearing me apart from the inside. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. And subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. I was in the office parking garage when my legs gave out. I remember hitting the cold concrete, fumbling for my phone. I had to call someone. I had to make sure Micah was safe. I couldn't pass out. Not yet. I dialed 911 first, then my mom. She picked up on the second ring. Hello. Mom, my voice was shaky. I'm in an ambulance. I think it's my appendix. I can't breathe. Oh, she said, like I'd just told her I misplaced my keys. Is it really that serious? I need someone to get Micah, I gasped. Please. I tried Jason, but he's not answering. I need you. There was a pause on the line. Then I heard clinking glasses in the background and the low hum of laughter. She was at a party. We're kind of busy right now, she said. It's Suzie's promotion dinner. You know how important this is to her. I couldn't even respond. She kept going. Can't Jenna pick him up? Or maybe someone from the school? I mean, Micah can be a bit much, you know. Always needing something. That word. Much. That word broke me. I don't remember what I said next. Maybe nothing. Maybe just silence before I hung up. I turned to the EMT in the back of the ambulance and mumbled Jenna's number. She was my ex-sister-in-law, and honestly, she had been more of a mother to Micah than my own mom ever was. Within minutes, Jenna had picked him up, brought him snacks, sat beside his bed in the ER while I underwent emergency surgery. She stayed the entire night. My parents? Never showed. Never called. Never even followed up. You'd think that would be the moment I snapped. But it wasn't. I was too numb. I told myself maybe they didn't understand how serious it was. Maybe they were just overwhelmed. Maybe they'd apologize. They didn't. For days later, my mom finally called. She didn't ask how the surgery went or if I was okay. She didn't ask if Micah was scared. Instead, she launched right into it. We're headed to the lake house next weekend. Can you transfer the usual money early this month? The car payment's due and your father's pills are expensive. Oh, and Suzie wants to get a new grill for the patio. I stared at the phone like it had slapped me. No, I said. Just that. One word. There was silence on her end. Then she laughed. What do you mean, no? I mean, I'm not sending money, I replied. Not now. Not ever again. You're being dramatic, she scoffed. We raised you. We supported you for years. You tolerated me, I said. You showed up for Suzie. You made her life easier. You made mine harder. And now you're using me like an ATM. My mom started raising her voice, her usual guilt trip mode activated. But I didn't have the energy anymore. I hung up, and for the first time in years, I felt this strange thing deep in my chest. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't grief. It was freedom. Later that night, I told Jenna everything. She just nodded and said, "It's about time, Ratch." She poured me a glass of wine and added, "You're not the villain here. You're just finally choosing yourself." That night, I watched Micah sleep, his little chest rising and falling, the soft hum of his breathing, and I promised him and myself that I was done. Done chasing love from people who never truly gave it. Done financing affection. Done pretending we were a family just because we shared blood. Micah was my family. Jenna was my family. The people who showed up, who answered the call when it mattered, they were my family now. And the others? They'd made their choice. Now they'd live with it. You ever realize someone's been showing up for you all along, but you were too distracted by the people who never did? That realization hit me like a wave a week after my emergency surgery, when Jenna hosted a birthday party for Micah in her backyard and made my son feel more loved in 2 hours than my parents had in his entire life. It was a small party, nothing flashy. Just a few of Micah's school friends, 2 kids from our apartment building, and Jenna's family, her husband Tony, their daughter Ashley, and even Jenna's elderly parents, who had no blood connection to Micah but still brought him a giant Lego set and hugged him like he was their own grandson. The backyard was decorated with hand-cut paper stars and planets. Jenna had remembered Micah was obsessed with space and went all out. There were little plastic astronauts on the cake, cups with rockets, and even a DIY spacewalk game where the kids pretended to float on the moon. Micah's eyes lit up like Christmas morning when he saw it all. And not once, did he ask, "Where's Nana? Where's Papa?" I don't know what hurt more, his complete lack of expectation, or the fact that he had learned to stop hoping they'd show up. It was then that I realized Micah had already replaced them. He knew who his real family was. He didn't need blood. He needed presence. I sat on the patio, sipping lemonade and watching him run around in a silver cardboard helmet Jenna made the night before. Tony was helping him build a toy telescope. Ashley was teaching the younger kids how to make space slime. I felt like an outsider looking in at the kind of life I never thought I'd have, but desperately wanted for my son. And for the first time, I wasn't mourning what I'd lost. I was grateful for what I had. After the kids settled down with cake, Jenna sat next to me. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I exhaled. I never expected to feel this happy. Especially not now. Especially not after everything. Jenna gave me a knowing smile. That's what happens when you stop begging for crumbs and start letting people feed you for real. I looked at her. She wasn't trying to be poetic. She was just telling the truth. The kind of truth that made you feel seen and ashamed at the same time. Because for so long, I'd been breaking my back trying to get my parents' approval, sending money, calling on birthdays, remembering anniversaries, pretending it didn't sting when they forgot Micah's school performances or didn't call during holidays. And all the while, Jenna had been there. Tony had been there. People I never thought would be family, they became one. Later that evening, Micah came to me with his school backpack. "Mom, I forgot to show you. Look what we're doing in class." He pulled out a crumpled sheet of construction paper. At the top, in big, bright letters, it said, "My family tree." There were stick figure drawings, some with photos, some with names written in messy kid handwriting. There was me, of course. Jenna and Tony, Ashley, even Jenna's dog, Milo. But where my parents' names would have gone were blank spaces. I blinked. "Sweetheart, why didn't you put Nana and Papa?" Micah shrugged. "They don't feel like family. They never come. But Jenna always brings snacks. And Uncle Tony teaches me chess. And Milo licks my feet." He giggled. "That's family, right?" I hugged him so tightly, I could barely breathe. Because he was right. He understood something it took me over 3 decades to fully accept. Family isn't who shares your DNA. It's who shares your heart. That night, after I tucked him in, I sat alone on Jenna's porch and stared at the sky. Clear, full of stars. I thought about my parents, probably watching some TV drama, drinking the wine I used to buy for them. Still pretending I didn't matter unless they needed something. And I felt nothing. No anger. No sorrow. Just quiet. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken or rejected. I felt chosen. Not by them, but by the people who actually cared. And that, I realized, is what real love looks like. That birthday party wasn't just a celebration for Micah. It was the funeral of my old life. The moment I finally let go of the idea that blood equals loyalty. The day I buried the fantasy that one day they'd change. The day I looked around and saw that I already had everything I needed. And I didn't have to buy it. I didn't have to beg for it. I didn't have to prove I was worthy of it. It was just given. Freely. It took them 13 days. 13 days of silence. 13 days since I had told my mom no. Since I hung up without offering a single excuse, apology, or explanation. 13 days since I stopped paying their bills, the car loan, the utilities, their fancy cable package with every channel they barely watched. I think they were waiting for me to break first. But I didn't. Not this time. It was a Friday evening when my phone finally rang again. I just picked Micah up from school and we were planning a movie night with microwave popcorn and cheap candy from the corner store. I saw the caller ID and felt a familiar tightness in my chest. Mom, I almost let it ring out. Almost. But something inside me said, pick up. I answered. Hello. Rachel, she said, her voice tired, more deflated than usual. We need to talk. I stayed silent. I didn't trust myself to speak yet. We didn't want it to come to this, she continued, but the car got repossessed today. Your father's blood pressure medication was supposed to be refilled, and we couldn't afford it. Suzie says she can't help right now. She's too busy with work and the baby. I waited, because here it came. I know you're upset, she said, her tone softening into that familiar mix of guilt and manipulation. But we're still your family. You can't just abandon us like this. That's not what daughters do. There it was. The line. That's not what daughters do. The irony hit me so hard, I almost laughed. Because you know what else daughters don't do? They don't beg for love. They don't raise their children alone while being treated like a second-class citizen in the same family they grew up in. They don't get left hanging in a moment of crisis, a literal emergency room call, because their parents are busy celebrating their golden child. I took a breath. My voice was calm, but steel-edged. Do you even remember what you said to me when I called you from the ambulance? She was quiet. Too quiet. I continued. You said you were too busy with Suzie. You called my son a burden. I was being rushed into surgery, Mom. I didn't know if I was going to wake up. And you couldn't even pick up your grandson. That's not fair, she whispered. It was a big night for Suzie. I blinked in disbelief. Still making excuses. Still choosing her. You didn't even ask how I was. Not then. Not now. You're only calling because the money stopped. Her silence was confirmation. You've made your priorities clear, Mom. I'm not angry anymore. I'm done. Rachel, please, she started, but I didn't let her finish. No. Listen to me now. I spent years trying to be enough for you. Paying your bills. Showing up to holidays where I was treated like a guest. Letting my son wonder why his grandparents never came to his recitals or birthdays. I did it all thinking maybe, just maybe, one day you'd look at me the way you look at Suzie. But that day never came. And now I see it never will. She tried to jump in again, but I raised my voice slightly, calm but clear. I'm not your financial safety net. I'm not your emotional punching bag. And I'm certainly not your afterthought. I'm your daughter. And you forgot what that meant a long time ago. I heard her breath catch on the other end. But I wasn't done. You're going to have to figure this out without me. Talk to Suzie. Talk to a bank. Sell the car. Get a part-time job. I don't care. But I'm not coming to the rescue anymore. I hung up. This time, there was no tremble in my hand. No regret. That night, as Micah and I curled up on the couch with popcorn and Disney movies, he leaned his head on my shoulder. I like it when it's just us, he said. Me too, baby, I replied. Me too. I didn't tell him about the call. I didn't need to. He didn't need to carry the weight of his grandparents' absence. He had enough love in his life to grow without their shade. And me? I'd carried that weight long enough. The next day, I got a text from Suzie. Just one sentence. I heard you finally said no. I stared at the screen, unsure how to reply. A minute later, another message came through. Took you long enough. No emoji. No explanation. Just a weird sort of acknowledgement. And suddenly I wondered if maybe, just maybe, Suzie didn't have it as easy as I thought. Maybe being the golden child wasn't all gold. Maybe she was just stuck in a role, too. But that wasn't my problem to solve. Not anymore. In the weeks that followed, the silence from my parents remained. No more guilt trips. No sudden apologies. Just quiet. At first, I waited for them to reach out again. To say something that might crack the ice they'd built between us. But the longer it went on, the more I understood that silence was their choice. And mine was peace. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for closure from the people who hurt them. I used to be one of those people. But turns out, sometimes closure doesn't come from a conversation, an apology, or a breakdown in tears. Sometimes it comes from a child with crayons and construction paper. It was about 2 weeks after I told my parents no for the last time. Micah came home from school, backpack swinging off one shoulder, excitement written all over his face. Mom, we're doing family trees in class, he shouted. nearly tripping over his own shoes as he rushed into the kitchen. I already started mine. "Want to see?" I nodded, brushing a hand through his hair. "Of course, baby. Let me see." He unzipped his backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was wrinkled, a little smudged with pencil, but it was beautiful. I unfolded it slowly. There were names in little boxes connected by hand-drawn lines, some scribbled, some colored, some with tiny stick figures beside them. Micah's name was right in the middle. Above him was me, just Mom, not Rachel. And branching out around me were names I expected, and a few I didn't. Uncle Tony, Aunt Jenna, Ashley, Grandpa Ron, Grandma Sally. I smiled. Then I noticed something. There were 2 boxes at the top, labeled Nana and Papa. They were empty. I looked at him. "Hey, bud, you left these blank. Did you want me to help fill those in?" He shrugged. I didn't know who to put. Nana and Papa never come to anything. They didn't even come to my birthday. My heart sank. But he said brightly, "Grandma Jenna came. And Grandpa Tony, too." So I added them instead. I blinked hard, swallowed the lump that climbed up my throat. He wasn't confused. He wasn't being petty. He wasn't making a statement. He was just being honest. Children are brutally, beautifully simple in how they define love. To Micah, family wasn't about who he was supposed to include. It was about who shows up. Later that night, after he went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with that piece of paper laid out in front of me like a roadmap of my own healing. I traced the lines with my fingers. My chest ached, not with sadness, but with this unfamiliar blend of grief and clarity. For years, I've been trying to stuff people into roles they had no interest in playing. I kept telling myself, they're still my parents. They love me in their own way. But no, love doesn't ignore a child in crisis. Love doesn't show up only when the mortgage is due. Love doesn't call your son a burden. What Micah gave me, unknowingly, was permission to stop forcing the picture to make sense, to stop defending people who had never defended me, to finally let go without guilt. I snapped a photo of the family tree and texted it to Jenna. Seconds later, she replied, "Okay, I'm crying. I love that boy so much." I replied, "He loves you too. And so do I." The next weekend, we were at Jenna's again. Just a lazy Sunday, board games, takeout, laughter. It was the kind of day I used to dream about having as a kid. Micah and Ashley were building a pillow fort in the living room. Tony was telling some corny dad joke. Jenna was sipping iced tea and leaning back like she finally got to breathe. And I was just there. Not on. Not performing. Just part of it. "You seem lighter," Jenna said suddenly. "Different." "I feel different," I admitted. Like I finally exhaled after holding my breath for 35 years. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Took long enough. A few days later, I got an email from Micah's teacher. She was doing a bulletin board for the classroom, displaying everyone's family trees. She attached a photo. Micah's tree was dead center, a little crooked, but full of color. And beneath it, in his handwriting, was a sentence they'd all been asked to write. "My family is the people who love me." That was it. No drama. No overthinking. Just truth. And that truth had set me free more than any confrontation ever could. I haven't heard from my parents since that last call. I don't expect to. Maybe they're still waiting for me to come back and fix things like I always did. Maybe they're finally realizing that I'm not going to. Either way, I'm not angry anymore. There's a certain kind of peace that comes when you stop giving people the power to hurt you. And a certain kind of joy when you realize you've built something better from the broken pieces they left behind. Micah and I? We're good. Better than good. We've got our people. We've got our quiet. And more importantly, we've got each other. The call came late. Nearly 10:30 p.m. Micah had already gone to bed, curled up with his favorite blanket, clutching a flashlight like it was treasure. I was in the kitchen, sipping chamomile tea and reading a book I'd tried to start for the past year. I almost didn't answer when I saw the name flash across the screen. Suzie. Suzie never called. Not for birthdays. Not for holidays. Not even during the divorce. We'd grown into strangers long before we ever realized we had become them. Still, something made me swipe to answer. "Hello," I said, cautious. There was a pause. A deep inhale. Then her voice. "Hey, it's me." I stayed quiet. I heard what happened," she said. Mom told me you stopped helping with the house and the car. She's not taking it well. I let the silence speak for me. She tried again. Rachel, I didn't know she said those things to you. About Micah. Or that she ignored you when you were in the hospital. I swear. I had no idea. Her voice cracked just a little. The perfect Suzie. Controlled. Polished. Now uncertain. I believe you, I said calmly. But it doesn't change what happened. No, she admitted. It doesn't. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then she continued, they've been leaning on me a lot lately. I think they expected me to pick up where you left off. I let out a dry laugh. And are you? Hell no, she said quickly. I told them they should have appreciated what you were doing for them. Mom tried to guilt me into covering their property taxes last week. I told her to sell the damn lake house. That caught me off guard. Suzie? Setting boundaries? This was new. She continued, it's always been like this, hasn't it? You being the dependable one. Me being the one they brag about. I didn't say anything. Because it was true. I used to think I was just the lucky one, she said, her voice smaller. But now I wonder if I was just the easier one. I leaned back in my chair, processing her words. The golden child, admitting her crown was built on silence. She kept talking. Rachel, I never told you this, but when you got that scholarship to Stanford, Mom was furious. I blinked. What? She told Dad you were trying to show Suzie up. She said you were being dramatic for applying out of state. I remember being 13, and they were in the kitchen whispering about how they hoped you didn't go, that they wouldn't help you. I didn't understand why then, but now she did. That wasn't your fault, I said, my voice low. None of that was your fault. No, but I stayed quiet, she admitted. I never stood up for you. I liked being the favorite. I liked not having to try so hard. I felt a strange pang, not anger, but grief. Not just for me. For both of us. I guess we were just kids, I murmured. Yeah, Suzie said. But we're not anymore. And we get to choose what we carry. Her words hung there like a challenge. Or maybe an invitation. Why are you calling me, Suzie? I finally asked. Really? She sighed. Because I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. And I miss you. I miss having a sister. That hit harder than I expected. I stared out the window at the moon hanging low over the street, remembering the last time I'd felt close to her. Probably before high school. Before our parents made her the center of the universe and made me feel like the shadow. I don't know if I can be that person again, I said honestly. I get it, she replied. But maybe we could start over. Slowly. Just us. Not Mom. Not Dad. Just two grown women trying to figure out how to be something to each other again. That night, I didn't make any promises. I didn't forgive everything. But I also didn't hang up. We talked for nearly an hour. Not about our parents, or expectations, or guilt. We talked about her daughter's tantrums, and my attempt to cook lasagna from scratch. About TV shows, and the weird neighbor who thinks her mailbox is haunted. For the first time in years, we laughed. Not forced laughter. Not family gathering politeness. Real laughter. And I realized, I wasn't just healing from my parents. I was healing from the roles we'd all been forced into. Me, the responsible one. Her, the precious one. Both of us, bruised in different ways by the same people. After the call, I walked to Micah's room. He was asleep, arm dangling off the bed like a little astronaut drifting in space. I kissed his forehead and whispered, thank you. Because watching him build his own version of family had given me permission to rebuild mine. And maybe, just maybe, Suzie was someone I could let back in. Not because she shared my blood, but because she finally showed up. A few months later, I found myself driving past the neighborhood I hadn't stepped foot in since I walked out of Suzie's promotion party. Micah was spending the weekend with Jenna and Tony, building model rockets in their backyard. I had a rare weekend to myself. No obligations, no noise. Just stillness. And yet, for some reason, I took a left turn I hadn't planned to make. I drove slowly down the street where I grew up, past the park where I used to sit with my books, past the corner store where I bought my first candy bar with chore money, and finally, past the house that once held all my hopes, and later, all my heartbreak. The siding was fading. The lawn hadn't been mowed. A for sale sign was half buried in the grass. I parked across the street and just sat there. It was strange. I thought I'd feel something: anger, grief, rage. But mostly, I felt nothing. No longing, no ache, no urge to go inside and reclaim anything. Because there was nothing left in that house for me to take back. I'd already taken the one thing that mattered: my peace. I stepped out of the car anyway, walked up the sidewalk. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just observed. The windows still had the same floral curtains my mom refused to replace. The front porch creaked the way it always had. For years, I thought that creak meant home. Now it just sounded like the past. I stood there for a while, just breathing, not mourning, just being. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a letter. I'd written it months ago. To them. To myself. Maybe both. I slipped it into the mailbox. Not because I expected them to read it, but because I needed to let it go. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. It said, "Dear Mom and Dad, you taught me a lot, though not in the ways you think. You taught me that love isn't always unconditional. That sometimes it comes with strings and silent contracts we never agreed to. You taught me that no matter how much I give, it may never be enough for people who never learn to value it. But you also taught me what I don't want to be, what I won't pass on, what cycles I'm going to break. And for that, I thank you. I forgive you. Not because you asked, not because you apologized, but because I'm not going to carry this pain anymore. It's yours now. I'm done holding it for you. I hope you find peace. But even if you don't, know that I finally did." Rachel, I walked back to my car, closed the door, and didn't look back. No dramatic music. No tearful breakdown. Just closure. That night, Micah came home with dirt on his jeans and glitter in his hair. "Mom," he said as we ate grilled cheese at the kitchen table, "I told Jenna you're the best mom in the whole galaxy." I smiled. "Did you now?" "Yup." She said, "I'm lucky." I said, "You were too." I laughed, genuine and full. "You're not wrong." Later, as he brushed his teeth and I stood in the doorway watching, I thought about the life we built. Not perfect, not polished, but real, rooted, safe, no pretending, no roles to play. Just a little boy who knew he was loved and a woman who had finally stopped trying to earn it from the wrong people. Suzie and I still talk now and then. Small check-ins, occasional calls. There's no pressure to be sisters in the way we never were. But there's a softness there, a curiosity. Maybe we'll build something new. Maybe not. Either way, it's enough. My parents never responded to the letter. Maybe they never saw it. Maybe they did, and it just didn't matter to them. That's okay. It wasn't for them. It was for me. They say healing isn't linear. They're right. Some days, I still think about what could have been. About the version of my childhood where I mattered more. But then I hear Michael laugh from the other room. Or I get a random text from Jenna that says, "We made way too much pasta, come over." Or I see a crumpled drawing taped to the fridge that reads, "Best mom ever," with stick figures and wonky stars. And I remember. I didn't just survive. I rebuilt. I found a way to love without strings. To give without expectation. To be enough, just as I am. No more begging. No more waiting. No more becoming small just to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be. I walked away from the house that raised me and walked into the home I created with open arms and a heart finally whole. If this story hit home for you, drop a comment below. Have you ever had to walk away from toxic family? You're not alone. Let's talk about it.